Well, we got a couple things. First of all, the Giants win 2 out of 3 against the Red Sox.
They did.
Couple come from behinds on Saturday and Sunday. Is there a move out there for him? I don't feel like there is. I mean,
Depends how serious they are. Not trying to win.
I looked at some odds for Verlander and Soto and Goldschmidt and Arenado. They're not anywhere on the list of possible teams that those guys could go to. You're not going to believe what I'm thinking if I'm the San Francisco Giants. Sure, go out, try to get a starting pitcher, but you're going to have to pay too much for that. But you know what? Just roll. You got four rookies. See what you can do. Let them play it out. Let them play it out. It's clear that it's a seller's market. And if you go out and get a pitcher, you're going to be overpaying. As for a hitter, I don't know. But you know what? Ride it out, Giants. You're right there. You're right there. Now, I'm not saying don't get a pitcher if you can, but let the young guys, let Luciano, let my guy Wisely, Sable. Let's let them play and see what happens.
I mean, the question is, Steiny, do you want the Giants to make the playoffs or not? Or do you care if they make the playoffs?
No, I want them to make the playoffs, obviously.
So, but with 5 rookies on any given day in your starting lineup, can you consider that a playoff team? Like, because to me, if you are essentially standing pat, which I think is the most likely outcome for the San Francisco Giants, then you're essentially just rolling the dice with a young team and a back end of veteran guys, and you're saying, if we make it, great. If not, that's fine. We had a decent season. But I do think, again, if the San Francisco Giants don't make the playoffs, like they're in the driver's seat for the wild card right now, even though they're a game up, I do think there are a lot of people that are going to be disappointed if they don't do anything.
But, yeah, I think you're probably right about that. But I just don't get the sense that there's a big move out there for them, or that they're as committed to a big move right now as maybe some other teams. I mean, Verlander's out there. I mean, you're really going to go get Verlander?
Well, the thing is, if you're willing to bite the financial bullet, you might be able to get him for not a large price. The reason that Max Scherzer fetched, I think, a top 10 or 2 prospect from the Texas Rangers is because the Mets agreed to pay $35 million of his salary for the foreseeable future for next season. So the Rangers aren't on the hook, but that gets the Mets a big prospect back. So if you're the Giants and you don't want to give up anything huge from your own system, well, then you might just have to foot the bill.
Right.
And the question is, do you want to do that? And for a player like that, to me, that automatically gives you a leg up on a couple of teams behind you right now in the wild card. And if you don't do it, then again, the question is, do you even care? Like, do you care if you make the playoffs? Because if you stand pat, to me, obviously you want to make the postseason, but you're also signaling we're fine if we don't.
Is that really what they're signaling, or are they signaling? You know what is out there is going to cost us too much money, or too much collateral in terms of players. I wouldn't necessarily interpret the Giants not making a move by tomorrow as they're okay either way. But I do think that it just seems like the landscape is full of buyers and not enough sellers. And, I mean, they're what are they, 12 games over? 12 games over?
10 right now.
10?
Do you guys think a splash like a Verlander or one of these bigger name free agents is more enticing for maybe an Ohtani in next year for free agency? I
don't. I think Ohtani may go back to the Angels. I'll tell you what, everything they're doing is to keep him, right?
Exactly.
So, they make a run in the last 2 months of the season. Maybe he ends up staying there, but
it's not just him. You're also telling other free agents that you're trying to acquire next year. And look, if it's going to be another Stripling and Manaea, or a Mitch Haniger, then that's fine if that's how you want to play it. But but by not doing anything, by standing pat at the MLB trade deadline, which is tomorrow at 3:00 Standard, then you are telling people that, look, we're just going to try and work this thing internally, and we're just going to build brick by brick. I don't think that that's a great selling point to anyone who's looking at San Francisco as a potential free agent destination for themselves. Nor is it, and look, maybe they don't care about the fans, but the fans are saying, why should I care about this team when they don't appear to have any sense of urgency when it comes to winning?
How can you say that when they're 10 over 500 and if the playoffs started today, they'd make it? Like, who's to say they have to make a move to get to the playoffs? Like, wouldn't the best case scenario be not to give up anybody and to somehow make the playoffs?
That's the best case scenario?
Yeah.
Well, it depends if you think they can win a playoff series. Otherwise, what are you there for?
Well, once they get to the playoffs, anything can happen. See, that's the way I look at baseball.
Why don't you look at basketball like that?
Because now you'll use this year as an outlier.
Why don't you look at the NFL like that?
Because the teams that finish, because in football, if you have home field advantage the whole way, you have a big advantage.
Yeah, but wild card teams win the Super Bowl. It happens. Like,
not a lot.
Not a lot.
Well, look, who made it to the NFC? Who made it to the NFC Championship game?
The Niners and the Eagles.
Two best teams in the conference, right?
Yeah.
Best record and second best record. So the odds are better in football and basketball for a higher seeded team to advance, I think, than in baseball.
Okay, but they're 8% as opposed to 7%. Like, it's still not good odds.
Come on. Like, the Phillies last year made the World Series.
Do you really think the San Francisco Giants, as currently constructed, can win the World Series?
I'm not going to answer that.
Why?
I'm going to say because they got to make the playoffs first. But once they make the playoffs,
then they can win the World Series?
Yes, why not?
Because they're not good enough.
Well, they made the playoffs. Once they're there, it's baseball.
That's not an excuse. You can't just, like...
What do you mean?
It's baseball? That's your reasoning for believing a team can win it all?
Yes. To me, baseball is different than the other sports in that...
An 8 seed just made the finals in the NBA.
I said, I knew you were going to do that because this year was an outlier in the NBA. But normally an 8 seed team doesn't make it very far.
And who won the World Series last year? The best team from game 1 to 162, the Houston Astros.
Are you fighting me on my main premise? My main premise
I'm just trying to push you a little bit.
If you have a team in baseball is more likely to run the table than in the other sports. And to me, that's important in terms of how you gauge what you want to do at this time of year.
Yeah, and look,
I'm not saying the Giants are the best team in baseball. They're not, obviously. But, we just see it all the time in baseball where a team gets hot at the right time.
Yeah, look at the 3 World Series team for the San Francisco Giants, 2010, 2012, 2014. Skywalker Destroyer on YouTube is talking about those. However, I would look at those teams and say those are significantly better rosters, even if the win totals match up, than this one. Like, in 2010, you had a legitimate Cy Young candidate. You had a stable of horses in your starting rotation. Okay. You had great young talent. You had a future Hall of Famer on your roster.
But we didn't know all that stuff then. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you could see it. Like you
could?
You could get a glimpse of it, yeah.
Well, are we getting a glimpse of Luciano?
What have you seen from Marco Luciano?
Are you kidding? Superstar in the making.
Yeah, he's hitting third.
Posey was already an all-star by 2010, wasn't he?
Well, we also saw him in 2009. I know it technically wasn't a rookie year, but he was called up in 2009, so we got him before. And then 2010 was his first full season. Helped him run the table.
See, I think you're overstating two of the things I said. That kind of bothers me early in the show.
That's okay. I got to get you fired up, Stike. It's a Monday.
I said...
We all love Mondays.
If the Giants don't do anything in the next 24 hours, I would not take that as a sign as they don't have confidence they can get it done. And I wouldn't. How many times do NBA teams at the trading deadline not do anything because there's just nothing there for them to do? Like sometimes I'd rather sit tight than make a move that I'm not crazy about. So
Warriors tried to get better at the deadline this year.
What'd they do? I can't even remember.
They traded James Wiseman for Gary Payton II.
How'd that work out?
But they also made an attempt because they thought that they had a chance to win the title. Now, they didn't.
Now, let me ask you this.
But that's a sign that they believed that they could win. So they went out and made a play.
Okay, so if you're the Giants, you would give up. Because let's face it, Luciano is Wiseman. So you'd give up a Luciano.
Whoa, I wouldn't call Marco Luciano James Wiseman.
Okay, give me another player. My point is that it's Wiseman would have been your
Joey Bart is James Wiseman.
Joey Bart is not James. James Wiseman was Luciano. Now, he turned out not to be Luciano. I'm talking about if you were to assess the Warriors farm system 3 years ago, it's like, wow, we got this guy, James Wiseman. Who's going to be good. Well, you traded James Wiseman essentially for a 10-12 starting pitcher with a 4.07 ERA and Gary Payton II.
I mean, but you could but you are getting better though. Like, I understand people want a splash move or a big name. I don't think that's out there except for a guy like Verlander. I
think you're right.
I also don't think that. Look, and maybe if you want to say Tim Anderson as a position player, he's a bigger name, but I don't think he's been that great this year. Like, I'm not saying that if the Giants don't go out and swing big and send on ship-off prospects that they're telling us that they can't get it. I just believe that teams that generally feel like they can win, have a chance to win the World Series, look to add. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going out and getting a big-name starter, a big-name position player. Those can certainly help. But you look at what Houston is going to try and do. They're going to try and add around the edges because they believe their team is good enough to win it all.
Okay.
You look at the Los Angeles Dodgers. They haven't made any big moves, but they have added pieces that can bolster and help kind of the depth of their team.
All right.
Like, those teams are making moves or will make moves because they believe they have a chance to win. The Toronto Blue Jays believe their roster is good enough if they get into the playoffs to win the World Series. That's why they go out and acquire a Jordan Hicks from St. Louis. Like, those aren't big names, and it's not sexy. What we're talking about is not necessarily a splash feel. But what we're talking about is the Giants at least feeling enough confidence that if what you're saying is true, if they get in, they can win, well, then wouldn't you want to add something?
I said go get a pitcher because they're going to need a starting pitcher, right? They still need a starting pitcher. DeSclafani's on the
IL, yeah.
He's on the 15-day IL right now. So they're going to probably need another pitcher. So why not just go get the best pitcher you can, give up the least amount of personnel that you can, and keep riding it out?
No,
there might not be a deal for them that they like. Like, let me ask you, do you think they're going to make a deal?
The Giants?
Yeah. They have a deal. I think they're either not going to make a deal or they're going to make a deal probably where we say, oh, okay. Well, they're okay. They could use that guy.
But to me, that's better than doing nothing.
Like, I wasn't advocating against that.
Oh, I thought you said off the top you didn't think they didn't want them to do anything.
What I'm saying is
you said you wanted them to ride it out with the rookies.
That's right. Like, I don't want to move any of the prospects at this point. The ones that are up here or not.
Even if two of them are hitting $180.
I am not moving off Wisely.
No, I'm not saying you
I'm
move
kidding
off
about
him.
Wisely.
Well, yeah, but
Look,
you could bring in
Luciano,
somebody to play for him, and then Wisely becomes your backup infielder.
Right, but Crawford came back, so there should be less of a need for him. But anyway, what I'm saying is, why not let Luciano play the next 2 months? Why not? Obviously, I don't know what they're going to do with Kyle Harrison. I know he was hurt a week ago. Maybe he comes up and pitches a little bit in the pennant race. Sable, the young guys, just why not let him go through a kind of a pennant race?
Look, I don't mind that, but to me, what you're telling me, what I read from that is that you do not believe that this roster is good enough to win it all. Otherwise, you would look to add. I personally do not think the Giants will make a move because, like you, and this is where I think we're on the same page, I don't think there's a move out there that aligns with the actions and past that Farhan Zaidi has shown. Like in 2021, I don't know if Chris Bryant, you consider that a splash move, but that's the thing. Like, that's a move that to me signals that at that time the Giants felt like if they got to the postseason, whether they won the division or got in as a wild card, they had a chance to win the World Series. So you look to go out and add a piece. This year, I don't know if that piece is out there. But what I'm saying is if they do nothing, which I believe is the likeliest outcome, that to me is a problem. Because if you really feel like this team is good enough to make it as a wild card, Well, then wouldn't you want to help it? Wouldn't you want to add to it?
Sure. But if there's not a deal, I don't think we're really disagreeing. If there's not a deal out there, all right, if Farhan looks at the landscape and says, that's too much for that, and that's too much for that, it's August 1st, essentially. Why not? Who do we have on this roster? Well, we got Patrick Bailey. Let him play. Estrada, I get he's hurt, but he's 27. Let him play. Sable, 25. Keep getting him some at-bats. I get it. Casey Schmidt can't hit right now. But you're still a playoff team with that. You got Matos. I think there'd be worse outcomes than doing nothing and falling short and letting this young group of 4 to 6 players, maybe they come through. Maybe they play well and the Giants do make the postseason. And all of a sudden you're looking at the Giants, you're like, we just made the postseason with Matos and with Bailey and with Schmidt and, with Sable and all the other young guys and Luciano. I mean, wouldn't that be the best case scenario?
Making the playoffs with 5 rookies in your game 1 starting lineup?
Yeah, in a way. Assuming you're not going to go get Verlander or Stroman.
And also assuming that you don't expect to win. Like, I don't expect that lineup to go into a postseason series and beat any of the NL contenders.
No, probably not. But why does this have to be the year when nobody expected it to be the year anyway?
And I'm saying that you can keep all of those rookies.
Okay, here's what I think. If you think this team's one move away from being the favorite, you're not saying that.
No.
Okay, so no matter what you do, you're going to be an underdog going into the postseason.
Just saying any move they make is marginal that you would just it doesn't matter.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Wouldn't move the needle enough.
It'll be a marginal improvement that's not going to make you better than 3 of the teams right now that are better than you. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, you want to give up everybody under the sun. I know